And what's going on YouTube? Jamie motherfucking Woods, another motherfucking video. Let's get it. Now today guys, I'm gonna talk about a whole different sport. Whether you consider it a sport or not, that's another video for another day. But I wanna talk about pro wrestling, alright? I've already talked about soccer, I've talked about football. Little by little, I'm migrating to every single sport. And the next one I wanna get into is pro wrestling. Now, pro wrestling is something I grew up with as a kid, and it's something at the time that was very popular when Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Undertaker, and Kane, and all these people were big at the time. And people used to rock out the little graphic tees of Stone Cold or like The Rock, or like what you're cooking, all this other bullshit and all that. And I remember growing up with the Attitude Era, going into the Ruthless Aggression era, and then now what's considered the PG era and all that. And I just wanted to talk about what WWE can do in order to be great again. Because let's face it, guys, pro wrestling as a whole, or I should say more specifically WWE, has not been up to par since about the mid-2000s. And that is because Vince McMahon has gotten way too comfortable. He understands that there's no competition, and so he's going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And so that's not how you run a business. How you run a business is by making your fans happy. How you make a business is by having your fans excited every single week for the next episode of Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view. However, what WWE has done since about 05, 06 on, because I think the last good year of WWE was, you know, from 05 to 08. Those were like the last couple good years. And then after that, it went downhill. But what WWE has done since then is that they've kind of like risen the number of pay-per-views. So now we'll get like 2 to 3 pay-per-views a month, and then they'll have like a bunch of shows throughout the week. They'll have Raw, they'll have SmackDown, they have this, they'll have that, they have Total Divas. It's like too much right now. I remember back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, there would only be like one pay-per-view a month. It'll just be Raw and SmackDown. Maybe you'll get a Heat or Velocity during the weekend, but that's pretty much it. And Heat and Velocity, you'd even see the main stars. Heat and Velocity were treated as mostly like the way NXT is now. Well, they'll have all the wrestlers that wouldn't necessarily wrestle on a Raw SmackDown. They have them wrestle on Velocity or Heat, so that way they get some match time. And on top of that, Heat used to be almost like a pre-show back then. So before a big pay-per-view, Heat was on Sundays, Velocity was on Saturdays. Heat would be like the pre-show, so they would be hyping everything, showing promo packages and all that, and it was cool. It actually made me hype for the pay-per-view. And that's another thing, I don't feel hyped for pay-per-views anymore. Pay-per-views are way too annoying. You have the same people wrestling every damn pay-per-view. The fucking the stages don't look anything cool anymore. Like it looks like a Raw, a glorified Raw. That's how it looks like. I remember there was a point in time where pay-per-views look really fucking good. Like SummerSlam used to have a Beats theme. Survivor Series used to look cool as fuck. Like I remember Backlash used to have the big hook that was swinging left and right and left and right. It was cool. Like they need to bring stages back again. They need to stop being cheap and bring stages back again, because those things were cool. And so that's another thing. They gotta lower down on the amount of pay-per-views and shows they're doing a week, because first of all, it's making the wrestlers get really super tired. I can just imagine how the top wrestlers, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, how all these people are feeling when they gotta fucking wrestle 5 to 6 times a fucking week. Because the thing is, guys, they have to wrestle Raw, sometimes even SmackDown. They gotta wrestle the house shows, a pay-per-view if they have it. Sometimes they gotta go on tour to a whole different country and wrestle there. These guys aren't performing at their best because they're wrestling way too much, and that's an issue, and that's something they need to cut down on. They need to cut down on the amount of shows they have a week. They're already making enough money as is. They need to cut down on that. That's just my opinion. I know some people are just going to disagree. Oh, but that's a lot of money being left on the table, blah, blah, blah. I don't care, man. I want good quality. I'm talking about a good quality show. Good quality, guys. This is what y'all motherfuckers don't understand. Good quality is always going to top quantity. Quality over quantity. Because if you have good quality, over time, people are going to be like, fuck it. They're only having one show a week. But guess what? That show's going to rock my brains out. So I'm going to see that show instead of having 10 billion shows a fucking week. And yes, you're going to please fans. People want to see these people. I get it. Quantity is cool too. But after a while, if the wrestlers aren't performing at their best, What is the point of it? And that's what we've seen for over a decade now. Is wrestlers tired the fuck out. I don't know how John Cena did it. I don't know how John Cena, because once John Cena got big, that's when they really got greedy with shit. That's when they started doing a bunch of house shows, a bunch of pay-per-views, a bunch of shows a week, I don't know how Cena did it. Cena's one of the GOATs, but that's another video for another day. But they need to cut back on that. They need to bring back the stages. Another thing they need to do that is huge is create new stars. I'm sick and tired. I love Roman Reigns. I love Seth Rollins. I love all these guys that they currently have on the top. However, guys, they need to create new stars. And now it's more evident than ever. Because Roman has not been on television no more. Seth kind of got pushed back to a mid-carder because he's feuding with Dominic Ware. I don't keep track of what the hell's going on WWE nowadays, guys, to be honest with you. But they need to create new stars. There's a bunch of people on that fucking roster that have been held back for years. Look at fucking Jon Moxley in AEW. Yes, he was a main eventer in the WWE, but he could have been bigger. Look at the way he is in AEW. Roman Reigns, you mean to tell me, and this is another video for another day. Roman Reigns, if Roman Reigns was on AEW right now, he'd be the biggest thing in pro wrestling. I swear to God. Everybody would love that man. Even Chris Jericho has stated it, that Roman Reigns would be the biggest thing in pro wrestling if he was in AEW. If he was able to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do, he'd be huge. And that's another thing. Like, they need to start letting these wrestlers be more, like, free with their character and promos. And that goes in with making stars as well, because you can't make new stars if these wrestlers aren't allowed to be themselves on camera, or whoever they want to portray to be. They can't do that. How you expect wrestlers to create new stars, to create new people, to make you more money, if you aren't allowing them to be who they are? They're over here memorizing a whole 2-3 page script that Vince McMahon or whatever old geezer in the back wrote for them that's out of touch with the fan base. They're over here going over here saying the stupidest shit in front of the camera. And then you expect these people to be over. No, they're not going to be over. I guarantee you Roman Reigns would be so much better if he was allowed to go up there and do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. The man has the look. The man isn't that bad in the ring. All he needs is a great character and great mic skills, which I'm sure he can do, and they have not allowed him to do that. And that's why Roman Reigns has been held back. And there's so many other people in the back right now. Rusev, I can name a whole list of people that can be huge for the company, and WWE has not taken a chance with them. WWE has not allowed them to do what the fuck they want. And don't be surprised that these people waste their lives, their whole career in WWE, or end up going to AEW and doing bigger over there. So that's what I'm trying to say. They need to have these wrestlers do their own promos, give them a little bit more freedom with their character to do whatever they want with their character. And by doing that, what's going to happen is you're going to create new stars. AEW has been doing it successfully for the last couple months with their wrestlers. I think the WWE implements it and stop being so on top of their talent, because I feel like they're way too on top of people, even the announcers. Like, I remember there was a point where announcing, maybe this has always been this way, but when Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, back in the early 2000s and the 90s, the announcing was so much better. Nowadays, you can just tell, like, they're stressed the fuck out every time they say something, because they know they say the wrong thing, which is meant a lot of fucking things in WWE, that Vince is gonna fucking scream in their ear, like, while they're fucking announcing. Like, it should not be that way. You should not go to work in fear of your boss. You should not be in work in fear of working. And that's the thing about WWE. You can just tell by the way people move, by the way people talk, that they're scared. And that's not how you run a business. Yes, there are certain rules that wrestlers should not be doing. However, they should be allowed to be free. Wrestling, there needs to be creative freedom in wrestling. That shouldn't be only for the top of the top. That should be for everybody. Everyone should have that creative freedom. And I think it should be a mutual thing. I think it should be the WWE and them collaborating to come up with something, not just WWE. And that's what they need to do going forward. Another thing is match quality. Now, this goes along with the fact that they're wrestling way too much, but I think match quality has slowed down way too much. It is too boring. I think what WWE needs to do, they need to come up with a bit more fast-paced wrestling. Let the wrestlers do a little bit more than what they usually do. Because this whole sleeper hold bullshit where they have you on, down on the floor in the sleeper hold for fucking 20 minutes, that's boring. I want to see fast-paced, technical, whatever happened to technical wrestling? It kind of disappeared. Ever since Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit all moved on. Like, we have not seen too much technical wrestling. I want WWE to start becoming what it used to be, but better. Because nowadays, there's so much talent out there nowadays. The talent nowadays in the world is so much better than what it was 20 years ago. I don't care what anyone says. There's so much talent, so much diversity. It's ridiculous. You can have hard-style wrestling, cruiserweight wrestling, technical wrestling, high-flying wrestling, lucha libre. Bring all that shit. Bring all that shit to the WWE. Bring it all. I want every single match should be different from the next, not the same thing. Sleeper hold. Oh my God, the crowd's getting hype. Oh, he's getting up. Oh, he's kidding him. Oh no, sleeper hold. Like, no, I'm tired of it. I want to see some like, I remember in the early 2000s, there was cruiserweights. There was the hardcore division. There was the heavyweight division, intercontinental. There was a bunch of shit. Like, it was a bunch of diversity. Diversify your roster. Diversify your matches. Don't all have it be the same shit. I'm bored of that. I want to see cool shit. I want to see cool gimmicks. Bring back a bunch of cool gimmicks back. That's another thing. Because there's so many gimmicks that haven't even been used in years. Whatever happened to the 3 Stages of Hell match? Whatever happened to tornado tag team matches? Bring all that shit back. Whatever happened to the parking lot brawls? Bring all that shit back, G. Hell in the Cells don't feel the same anymore. They feel like a glorified cage match. Even cage matches feel weird. Like, it just, they need to make these things a lot cooler. Like, I'm not saying to bring back the Inferno match, because the Inferno match is, I get it. There's a lot of dangers to that. I get it. But, like, bring back cool gimmick matches. Stop making it all the same shit. Oh, a cage match. Hell in the Cell. Even the Elimination Chamber doesn't feel like it used to be, because they have a whole pay-per-view towards it. And that's another thing. Get rid of these gimmick pay-per-views. No more Hell in the Cell. No more Money in the Bank. Get rid of that. Money in the Bank should be reserved for WrestleMania or another specific pay-per-view, like it used to be, and it makes it more special. Elimination Chamber should be a once-a-year type of thing, twice-a-year type of thing, where they have it in Survivor Series or something like that. That's cool. But stop overexposing these gimmick matches. That's another thing. There needs to be a balance. So my whole point, find a balance of bringing back in cool gimmick matches and putting them where they deserve to be in. But don't do it so much to the point where people don't give a fuck about it anymore. And that's another thing. I don't give a fuck about Elimination Chambers. People say, oh, Elimination Chamber match. Nowadays, that doesn't excite me. Back in 02, 03, I was like, oh no, Elimination Chamber, I'm buying the pay-per-view. I'm buying it. It used to be different. One thing I will say that WWE has done well is the women's division. I do like the women's division. So keep doing what you're doing with the women's division. Keep evolving. Keep progressing that division, because there's a lot of talent in that division. But there's so many things that is so wrong with the WWE. I could go, this video could be 2 hours, guys. No lie, it could be 2 hours. But let's continue. The theme songs suck. Bring back rock theme songs. Enough of this pop bullshit. It doesn't get me hype. I want to hear cool shit that's going to get me hype for pay-per-views. Bring back rock music for pay-per-views. Bring back the moving hologram things. Remember those things in Raw or in the pay-per-views where the guy used to turn around and poses Triple H versus Brock Lesnar, whatever, and the guy's like, it was cool. It used to get you up. Now it's just like a picture of the two. Like, it's like Triple H here and then Brock there, and then that's it. It's not as cool as it used to be, where it used to be moving and like coming up next, Triple H versus Brock Lesnar. You know, bring that shit back. Bring that shit back. You know, there's so much shit that WWE they could be on top of the world right now. They could be on top of the world. But they decided just not to. They have so much talent behind the scenes they didn't even know. And I'm right now, I'm coming up with this video at the top of my head, guys. So there's so many other things I'm sure that I want to mention that I'm forgetting at this very moment. But those are just a couple things, a couple big things that WWE can do in order to go in the right direction, in order to get the ratings up. And the biggest one, guys, get rid of the PG crap. No more PG crap. It does not work in pro wrestling. Pro wrestling was never meant, the pro wrestling world that Vince created is too big for PG. Now, if pro wrestling was the way it was in the 60s, where it was more viewed as a sport, or the 70s, it was more of a sport, then all right, cool. PG would work. But the fact that Vince made this whole gimmicky, supernatural, crazy world of WWE pro wrestling, that whole thing that he established, it doesn't fit in PG. It's so limited to what it can do with PG. AEW has been doing great with the fact that they have PG-14, PG-13. Why don't they go up to PG-14 and start cursing again, start bleeding again? Who gives a fuck? Obviously, your ratings are going down. Those kids don't give a fuck about your shit no more. Those kids that are watching Cena are grown up. They no longer want to see the same PG crap. How about you guys go up to PG-14? You move on with the times. Those Cena followers that used to follow y'all, they're grown up. Why don't you move it up to PG-14 and start doing PG-14 content? But no, WWE doesn't want to do that. They don't think. But that's the main thing. They need to go up to PG-14 again, have hardcore matches, have all this crazy loony shit. I'm not saying for it to be like the way it used to be in the Attitude Era, where you had Mae Young popping out a hand and Mark Henry being like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not saying all that crazy shit. I don't want it to be that gimmicky either, where it's like super unrealistic. Like, I think WWE needs to follow what the UFC is doing, where the UFC allows their fighters to do what they want. It's violent, it's cool, it's with the times, it's realistic. I think WWE, nowadays, what's going to make pro wrestling stick out is it being a little bit more realistic than usual. So instead of coming out with these crazy gimmicks, like, yeah, they have the whole Bray Wyatt Fiend gimmick, which is amazing. I love it. But I think from going forward, they need to get rid of those type of gimmicks in a sense and go for more realistic gimmicks and start coming up with more realistic video cameras, video angles, because who the fuck is going to believe that a camera guy is in the same room as a wrestler is, and he's talking shit about this other wrestler, whatever it is? Like, bro, come on, man. It's a little unrealistic. How about you leave the door a little bit open, have the cameraman go in there with a camera view, looking at the guy talking shit, so it could be a little more realistic, you know what I mean? Like, make wrestling a bit more realistic, a little less fake, a little bit more realistic. Like the whole punches where they go ooh, and then all the guys are boo, and then ooh, that's very unrealistic. It's like I take that out. You can implement punches into wrestling, but make it look more realistic. One punch is good enough to knock someone out, and not this whole ooh and then ooh and then ooh. I get it. It's good for the crowds, but it's just after a while it looks hella fake. People gonna be laughing at this. They do in a boxing fight. One punch in the UFC fight, one punch is good enough to take someone down, especially if it's wide open like the way it is in wrestling. So make your matches a bit more realistic, but don't lose the fun at the same time. Just find that balance and start, cutting back on the pay-per-views. Start allowing wrestlers to be themselves, and maybe you can create new stars out of that because you're allowing them to be themselves. Start bringing back stages for the pay-per-views and make the pay-per-views more exciting. Also, limit your pay-per-views to about 8 matches. Start having, especially in WrestleMania, they have way too many matches. It's 5 hours. People are tired and bored. Don't stop doing that. Cut back on the matches. Make everything, count. Quality over quantity. And I think WWE can be back where they are. And of course, I might make another video on this because I'm sure I've forgotten other things. I created this on the fly. So everything I mentioned was on the fly. All right. So guys, that's the video for today. I will be making more pro wrestling videos. And talk to you another day. Peace.